Yo, welcome back to another video of me explaining things that you don't need to know. But anyway, who am I? I am Jason. Nice to meet you. No, I'm joking. I am Mr Wright official on Instagram and YouTube and things like that. I'm a certified certified personal trainer. I am a competitive bodybuilder, lifetime natty, if that makes any difference to you. But yeah, so in today's video what we're gonna go over is movement patterns and their role in exercise, as well as just some background information that you might need to know or might want to know, just to give some more context for the movement patterns. So yep, cool. So first things first, movement patterns and muscle growth. So muscle growth is achieved when you put your muscles under tension in their primary or secondary functions, or basically when they're active, putting tension through them will, in most cases, pretty much all cases, cause muscle growth to occur. So loading muscles during their functions. So what is a muscle's function? Well, that muscles can only contract, that is their function, they pull on each other. So let's say this is a muscle, it will pull into each other. So for example, a bicep, it pulls to pull your arm up, and your triceps will extend your arm. So you get flexion and extension. That is some basic anatomy and physiology. But so for example, your chest will pull your elbows forwards, your shoulders will lift your elbows up, and so on and so forth. So you can use that logic to basically figure out what muscle group and exercise is working. So let's say you're doing a bench press, you're going to be pressing like that. What forces your arms up like that? What will have to be involved? So what's happening? Your elbow is coming forward and your forearm is extending. So that means your chest is pulling your arm forward and your elbow is keeping it, your tricep is keeping your arm straight and also pushing out. So also obviously there will be some shoulder engagement. So just think of it as like a pulley system. So chest will pull your arm forward and your back will pull your arm back. So same thing goes with your legs and all of your muscles. So when you're moving your hand up and down, this muscle is pulling it down, this one's pulling it up. It's pretty simple logic that you can apply. But anyway, so yeah, next up, so some information on range of motion. What the heck is range of motion? It is the range of your motion. So let's say you're doing a chest press, a bench press, for example, again. Your range of motion, this is your motion. How far you're going between where and where, that is your range. So if I'm going from here just to here and pressing, obviously my range is ending there. So I'm not maximizing by getting a full stretch. Range of motion is also highly correlated with quality of life, because obviously the more range of motion you have, the more your ability to move is, the easier your life will be, and the more strength you have in extended ranges of motion, the easier everyday tasks will be, like climbing downstairs, carrying groceries, getting out of bed, things like that. So yeah, range of motion is something I strongly encourage you to consider working on throughout your training journey. It will only benefit you. It will also help risk of injury reduction. So your risk of getting injured will be reduced the stronger you are in more complete ranges of motion, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah, so ideally you want to get, when you're doing an exercise, the full range of motion, and you want at least equal tension applied throughout the entire range of motion, if not higher tension at the lengthened portion of the range of motion. What is that lengthened portion? So that is when your muscle is at the most lengthened part of that range of motion. So in other words, the stretched portion. So let's say you're doing a bench press with dumbbells, because obviously a barbell will hit your chest. If you're going all the way down and touching your shoulder, this is your chest muscle will be as stretched as it can be, and then when you push it up, it will be shortened. So lengthened versus shortened position. Ideally you would want more tension in the bottom, but obviously within reason. You don't want to tear your muscle off the bone, because the lengthened portion is where your muscle is the most thin, so the least strong. But if you gradually progressive overload, so progressively load your muscles to get stronger in those stretched ranges of motion, you will become exponentially stronger than and your mobility will be increased drastically, which is very beneficial for all walks of life and sports and every aspect of being alive. So that is something to consider when you are seeing people in the gym just bouncing weights and doing half reps and things like that. So if you don't know what some of these words mean, like reps and things, go check out my previous video on Gym Basics 101, where I outlined the basic fundamentals of just training. But yeah, so movement patterns, what are their roles in training? So your muscles have usually between 1 and 3 primary functions. So for example, your chest primary function is to pull your elbow forward, but it also, since your chest muscle connects into your arm, into your humerus, it pulls your arm, twists your arm a little bit as well. So those are 2 functions of your pectoralis muscle. So let's say, for example, your bicep muscle, it pulls your arm up, but it also twists your forearm. So because it's connected into your forearm bone, your radius or ulnar, it pulls your arm to contract it, but it also twists these bones to contract. So basically your muscles have multiple functions in most cases, and you want to target these functions for muscle growth and strength training. Most exercises that have a similar movement pattern, so for example a bench press, a pressing movement, in other words, the movement pattern is a pressing movement. You're pressing forwards. So if you're pressing, it's going to activate pretty similar muscles no matter what you are doing. So if you are doing it on a machine press, if you are doing a bench press with a barbell, if you're doing a bench press with a dumbbell, if you are doing similar movement patterns, they're going to target similar muscle groups because they're targeting the same function. So don't worry about specific exercises that you should be doing. There's no such thing. It's primary functions of the muscles that you want to target. So what are the movement patterns you should be going for? So ideally, let's go from the bottom up, since I believe that lower body is the source of life. Legs is life, as they say, as I say. I don't think anyone's ever said that before, but anyway. So what you want to do, we'll start with your feet. You want to get some dorsiflexion going, and some plantar flexion. So you want to get your foot moving up and down. You want to move your ankles. You want to just basically do calf raises, which is a movement pattern. But ideally you'd want to do that with your knees locked out. So try not to do too many bent knee calf raises. It's mostly a waste of time, unless it's for like a specific activity where your knee is bent, such as bike riding or something. But anyway, unless you have a specific reason to do bent knee calf raises, I would not recommend them. Anyway, next let's go for upper legs, your thighs. So knee bending exercises, squats, hack squats, leg presses, lunges, any sort of activity where your, let's say this is my leg, where your knee is bending and straightening. So no matter what that is, try and get that involved. And remember, full range of motion. Get all the way down into that stretch position. You want your calves to touch your hamstrings. I don't know if you can even see that, but all the way down, control it. If you're unable to do that, work on it over time. Don't try and go all out, obviously. If your range of motion is limited because of whatever, try and progressively overload, so get better over time. Don't increase the weights or the reps or anything. Just get a weight that's manageable and then try and slowly increase your range of motion. So let's say you can only get to 90 degrees. Cool. Next week you try and get a little bit further than 90 degrees. This is, for example, a knee and a leg and a calf, by the way. So as time goes on, try and get a little bit further than 90 degrees, let's say 80 degrees, and then don't have set targets, don't worry about that, but try through time to use more and more range of motion. It will only benefit you in the long run. Don't worry about those people who say don't go past 90. Unless you have a doctor specifically telling you don't go past 90, do not worry about it. It is a good thing. Even if a doctor does tell you, I am not a doctor, by the way, don't listen to me. This is just for educational purposes and information. But in most cases, I'd be hard pressed to see why anyone shouldn't go past 90 degrees in knee bending exercises. Cool. So next up, obviously you get pushing with your legs, which is knee extension bending, and then you get pulling exercises with your knees, so flexion, which is going to be targeting your hamstrings, so the back of your leg. So it's the same. Let's say my arm is my leg, for example. This will be your hamstring pulling up, and then this will be your quads, so the top muscles of your leg, which pulls it straight. So we're going to think about the hamstrings now. So you can do a seated leg curl if you have a machine like that, or you can do a lying leg curl. Most gyms have a lying leg curl. It's not as ideal, but it's really doesn't make much of a difference. And then you can also do, if you don't have any equipment at all, you can do Nordic leg curls, which is where someone holds your feet down and then you have your knees on the ground, and then you slowly try and go down as slow as you can, and then you push yourself up with your hands. So you'll be on your knees and you'll go down as slow as you can, and then use your hands to brace and push yourself back up, and then let your hamstrings control you down. Try it and hold it if you can. Cool. So next up you have hip hinging movements. So this will also be your glutes, your hamstrings, and your lower back, your posterior chain. Posterior means the back of. So all of the back of your muscle, the muscles in your back that help you stand up straight and stand up if you've bent down or something. So very important muscles to focus on. A hip hinging movement is vital. So getting a movement where your hip is hinging. So stiff leg deadlifts, you can do glute ham raises, you can do single leg stiff leg deadlifts, I guess. Romanian deadlifts is the same as stiff leg deadlifts, but some activity where your hip is hinging. So you want to keep your lower back arched, push your tummy out, and try and push your knees and hips back at the same time. Get all of these muscles involved. Some sort of exercise like that, should be able to do it. You can do good mornings as well, really good exercise if you're able to. Next up, let's work our way up. So abs. To be honest, you won't really need to train abs if you're focusing on muscle growth. Like, you can if you really want to, but your abs kind of get involved when you're doing any sort of compound movement where you're holding a weight. So let's say you're doing a bent over row, your core muscles are going to be stabilizing you. If you're doing a squat, your core muscles have to get engaged to help keep you upright. So overhead presses, things like that when you're standing, all gets involved. So skip that one for now. If you're really interested, you can do some leg raises, try and crunch down and then extend up. But yeah, so that's something like that where you get leg raises, knee raises, crunches. Anyway, next up, let's go for some back muscles. So a rowing movement, vital. So what you want to do is you want to get a nice hip hinge going, and then you're going to try and let your scaps travel forward and pull back. If you're using a machine row, a cable row, a dumbbell row, a barbell row, it does not make much of a difference. They all work very similar muscles. If your grip is narrow, if your grip is wide, if it's neutral, if it's supinated is like you're holding a cup of soup. Pronated means it's facing down, so your palms are facing down. Neutral just means in the middle. So it does not make much of a difference, especially in the beginning, which angle you choose and where and when and how, as long as you're doing some sort of pulling movement when you're rowing towards you. And then also a vertical pull. So you get horizontal pulling, which is going to work your back musculature, and a horizontal pulling, a vertical pulling. So pull downs, pull ups, that sort of thing. Really good to get involved in that. Next up, let's go for some pushing movements. So you want a horizontal, same as the pulling muscles, the pulling movements. You want a horizontal press and a vertical press. So you can do a bench press, a dumbbell press, or whatever press. Any sort of pressing will work. Ideally, you want to start get competent with free weights so that you have good stability muscles. If you are unable to do that, machines are perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong. There's no right or wrong answers here. It's all shades of grey. Context is really dependent on the situation. So yeah, each situation is completely unique. So bench pressing, chest press, dumbbell press, some sort of press, and then overhead press or vertical press. So shoulder presses, you can do military standing press, you can do any sort of exercise where you're pressing overhead. It's going to work your shoulder muscles and your triceps. Some bonus movement patterns that you would probably benefit from including, not necessarily, but it would probably help out, especially if you're trying to go for muscle growth. A fly movement. So instead of pressing with your arms bent, you have weights out here or cables, and lift your chest up, shoulders back, and you pull your arms together. Just pretend you're hugging a tree or something, or someone, but violently and strong. Anyway, no, I'm joking. Next, probably a lateral raise. So similar to the chest fly, you want to do a shoulder fly sort of movement. It's probably a good idea. Just works on the side muscles of your shoulders. It's not vital. Overhead pressing will get some side delt involvement, and bend rowing will get your rear delts involved. Any pressing movement is going to get your front delts involved. So it's not vital. It's just for some extra side delts if you want. Next, an upright row is probably a good idea. So pulling something up towards your face and controlling it down. Make sure you're resisting your elbows falling back, pulling together. So as you come down, try and pull your elbows apart. Pull, 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 pull. Control. And up, control it down. Make sure you're controlling the eccentric for extra gains. And control full range of motion on all of these exercises. Remember to go for the stretch. So chest fly, stretch. Bench press, stretch. Rows, let your shoulders travel forward. Let your scaps come forward when you're doing a rowing movement, so pulling movement. So let them come forward. Stretch all its upper back muscles, and same with the pull down movement. Let your shoulders come up, shrug up, stretch, and then pull them down. You'll get your whole lats involved. And then so upright rows, and then probably a dip movement, so a pushing, a decline press. Not vital. None of those last four are vital, so don't worry too much about them, but they are probably a good idea. So just if you're going for muscle growth. try and get all the way down, stretch. You can do a dip, you can do a press down, some sort of movement where you're pushing down, and that would cover basically your entire body and all of your main muscles functions. So if you want to get really nitpicky, you can include some forearm movements, some wrist extensors and flexors, but other than that you are completely covered. Even from just pulling and pushing, you should get some forearm activation and strength, but otherwise that is that. So that's all of your movement patterns you should cover. Don't worry about specific exercises, just go for movement patterns that you're most comfortable with, that make you feel good, that benefit you in the long run. Obviously these things are going to be uncomfortable in the beginning, but try them a couple times, see which ones suit you best. And yeah, thanks for watching. Check out my other videos, drop a like, comment, subscribe, and cheers.